So the Department of Justice is the regulatory agency that actually updates and puts out the federal regulations regarding the schedules of controlled substances. And as we all know, marijuana is a schedule, what? Schedule 1. And what does that mean? What does schedule 1 mean? Schedule 1 shall consist of drugs and other substances by whatever official name, common or usual name, chemical name, or brand name designated listed in this section. Each drug or substance has been assigned to the DEA controlled substances code number set forth opposite to it, and it means it is always illegal to have these in your possession without a specific prescription for use. And even with the prescription, if you're using it outside of its intended use, you can still go straight to jail. Do not pass go, do not collect $20. That's what Schedule 1 means. It means that is if you have any Schedule 1 substances in your office or in your control, you are to make sure, as the veterinarian, because as we talked about earlier in the class, as a veterinarian, you are the licensed person, so you are the person that gets to go straight to jail if there are any violations. Because you are responsible for what happens in your office, right? So the scope of the schedules of controlled substances specifically also speaks to you. So a lot of times, a lot of statutes under our justice system or in our human health system only talks about medical use. But this specifically talks about veterinarians too. And I want you to be well aware that you are required as a veterinarian to keep up with what is and is not on the schedule. That's why I'm showing this to you online, because it is updated through the Federal Register. Anybody here know what the Federal Register is? Wonderful. The Federal Register is the official notification of the federal government of any change that happens to any federal agency or federal statute. So once it becomes a law or a rule, which it goes through our, the high school government process of becoming a bill, it is then assigned to an agency that is in charge of the enforcement of that law. And in this case, it's the Department of Justice. And what the Federal Register does is it gives notice to anyone and everyone of any changes, no matter how small or how large, to that law. So just because a law has been passed in one form, how it's implemented and how that law will actually be regulated is announced through the Federal Register. And so, of course, as a veterinarian, you'll probably hire somebody like me to keep aware of these kind of notices for you. But if you do not have somebody like me on retainer, you need to be aware, especially if you're in private practice, or your practice manager needs to be aware of any updates that might impact your practice. In this part of the Code of Federal Regulations, deals specifically with the schedules of controlled substances established by Section 202 of the Act, and non-narcotic substances, chemical preparations, veterinary antibiotic, steroid implant products, prescription products, antibiotic steroid products, and cannabis plant material and products made therefrom that contain tetrahydrocannabinoids, excluded pursuant to 201 of the Act as they are changed, updated, and republished from time to time as set forth in this part. So basically what they're saying is if it has anything to do with a Schedule 1 drug, if it is updated or changed in any way, the responsibility is for you to know under this section and to come here to see what changes. Now, there are a lot of lobbies that are happening across the United States to remove marijuana as a Schedule I substance. And why is that important, that it be removed as Schedule I? Any guesses? I'm sorry? Well, it's already available for medical use in about, how many states again does the article say? And this was as of 2006. I think this may be even a little outdated. I'm sorry, 2016. But on page 33 of the article, it shows you the states that have approved marijuana for recreational and medical use, for medical use only. Only cannabinoid use, which is CBD, not THC. And the ones that have absolutely no laws. And taking it off Schedule I, well, first of all, right now, because it is a Schedule I drug, these individual states have passed laws making it available for medicinal use and medicinal purposes. However, they cannot use federal dollars to conduct any research on this drug because it is a Schedule I drug. And so that is one of the main reasons why the research establishment is pushing for it not to be Schedule I, is so that it actually can have more financial support to do research on the impact, not only on humans, but also on animals. Any questions about that? So again, as we look at page 33, in the states that are highlighted in red, you see that the good old Bible Belt, in which we currently sit, or the Black Belt, as it's referred to, is only red. And in some states, it's not even red. No laws, no protection. Which means only cannabinoid use. CBD is the only thing that's been made legal for use. And it usually, and depending on the state, it has very specific use, even which CBD can be used. And so you have to be concerned, based on where you're practicing, about how even the CBD can be used. Now, please understand me when I say all of these states, no matter what color that they currently are, this is only for human use. There's no state that has legalized it for use in animals. None. So please don't use this and say Attorney James said that it's legal for these states because it was in this article. No, these are still only for humans. Yes. Yes.
So, Martin about it, it shows that Nevada is red, but I know in 2016 we passed a law saying recreational use is legal in Nevada.
Right, and like I said, I know that there have been states that have updated since 2016. This was the most recent article that I was able to find that was on point and brought the topics together for veterinary purposes. But even with those states coming on board, we still don't have a state that has legalized for animal use. I'm sorry, go ahead. Are they legally selling it for animals?
I mean, they're selling it.
Exactly. That's the distinction. There are a lot of people that sell CBD and THC, even in states where it's not legal. So just because you can buy it someplace that's not, and they say for animal use, please don't take that to mean that the law has changed. You need to go, again, back to the Federal Register. You need to go to that individual state and look what laws have been passed in that state. Because even if that state is blue or green, it will have very specific language about what medicinal purposes are allowed. Okay? Yes, ma'am. As a veterinarian, you cannot then, absolutely, you cannot tell your client, hey, go down to the pet store and get them some CBD. Absolutely not.
So how are like all stores or whatever, how are they being under the wire like selling?
I mean, the same way we all know our neighborhood drug dealer that sells whatever. I mean, I'm not being facetious, but when we all know the neighborhood drug dealer. We all know. If you grew up in the neighborhood, you know which house where people go to buy drugs. You knew where it was. And if you lived there, usually the police that lived there knew which one it was too. But they bust who they decide to bust, when they decide to bust. That's just, and it usually happens in this time of year, in election years, right before election, is usually when most of those houses get identified. But we all kind of know where they are and what they do. Doesn't make it legal. So you just have to be very careful. Now, speaking of which, in here, this particular article, which I really like, that's a clinical case we want to talk about. Lucy, a 27-pound, 4-year-old spayed beagle, presented with an acute onset of lethargy, ataxia, and urinary incontinence. She has vomited once earlier that day, but that was not unusual because her owner said she eat everything. On physical examination, Lucy was mildly disoriented and hyperactive to stimuli. She startled very easy, was overreacted to hand movements, but was dull and when unstimulated and fell asleep. The remainder of her physical examination was within normal limits. What do you do? Well, we're just talking about this animal right now. We're not talking about necessarily about, again, we talked about client confidentiality because you can't say for sure that the dog got it from the person that brought the dog in. So you can't start pointing fingers yet.
Stabilize.
Yeah, you treat for the symptoms that you have. But the main thing is that you want to be able to identify that these are the types of clinical manifestations that you may see. And so it then requires you to ask some more questions up front, which they talk about in this case. They asked if there was a possibility of them having access to edibles or marijuana in the home. And it was revealed that, yeah, maybe they could have got in some brownies, I think they had in the house. And that she had access to some medical grade marijuana. Now, the other thing about medical grade marijuana is that the potency in medical grade marijuana is usually way, way higher than what you buy on the street. The oils and the tinctures that are created for medicinal purposes are usually have a much higher percentage, up to 50% THC. So even ingesting a small amount could have a very severe impact, and it could last for up to 72 hours. So now that you're aware that the animal has had access to marijuana, there are, in the article, it talks to you about some different, the treatment strategies for dealing with the pet, because usually in animals, there have been very few cases of death. Usually if you, the toxicity, the half-life of the toxicity can be decreased by giving them fluids and helping them to dilute it in their system. And in this case, they monitored the animal overnight, and they were able to release them the next day because the clinical symptoms had been decreased in such a way that they felt safe to release them back to the home. So, once this person admits, yeah, they probably had some access to medical marijuana in the house, what are you going to do with that? right? So you treated the pet, but what about the client?
To educate them on not
Okay, so if they're telling you it's accidental, they have prescription for it, they, unfortunately, dog eats everything and they climbed up on something and ate the brownies or whatever it is. But what if they're telling you, oh, well, the dog's been real erratic, won't be quiet at night, so I just give them a little bit at night so they're rested. Does that change?
It's the same thing, it's blind indication, it's like one of those that get Tylenol, it's the same thing, that's everything that might be treated, it's still their decision.
Okay, you educate them and say, it's not good for the dog. I know it helps you calm down, it helps you rest at night, but, there's not any clear research that this helps your dog. They say, well, I don't really care about your research. I have research over the last 5 months that my dog chills right on out when I give them the brown. Just a little pinch, they just got into it and they ate too much. But I know the right dose to give my dog. He chills right on out. That change your mind at all? Why is chocolate different for you? Well, it depends upon what edible they have, because the potency level. Okay. But my thing is, this person has, in their mind, they've come up with the appropriate dose over their clinical study of what happens with this dog. And they feel like, yeah, I understand that you can't tell that, there's no prescription out there, but I've given them different doses over the last 5 months, and I know exactly if I give them one pinch, I don't have to listen to barking all night, they go to bed, I go to bed every night. We'll offer them another prescription.
something relaxing.
Okay. Another, who's that here?
Write it down.
I'm sorry?
Just give them another option about what they could do versus, once again, high medication, so that keeping giving them something that could be,
Good. You want to try to see if you can't change their mind. I mean, again, I don't think it's a situation where you want to try to make it a sports on anyone. But you definitely want to try to give them a different treatment option. Because I'm sure whatever you prescribe might be a little bit cheaper than them dosing with medical grade marijuana, which could be pretty expensive if you split it with your pet. Yeah, I mean, but and as it becomes more, and the article talks about this, as it becomes legal in more states, what used to be situation was really more like a puff test. Animals were actually getting those because they were around, they were inhaling smoke from being in the house with people who were smoking. But now that there are more edibles and butters and oils, and there are a lot more things that pets can actually get access to unintentionally. And intentionally. So you have to be very clear about your questioning. So how much of this you going to actually put in your medical record? Absolutely all of it. Even down to the part where they say they've been giving them different doses over the last 5 months, all of that. You want to make sure that you clearly document that in the record. But the biggest part that you want to document is your recommendation that this is not appropriate, and that you recommend something more appropriate for to deal with the symptoms that they're trying to treat with marijuana. Now there are some other cases where medical marijuana, where you have pets that have more an actual, some serious illnesses like a cancer or something that's causing them to have other clinical manifestations, and people are really convinced and that the use of marijuana in those animals has some good medicinal purposes. Again, there are not any federal studies that have been cleared to look at that, but there are some university studies that are starting to look at the use of marijuana. I can't remember the name of them now, trying to make sure I have it when I come back to class. So there are some universities that are using non-federal dollars to start to actually do some research on the use of marijuana for actual clinical treatment of animals. And I do see this as you get more and more states starting to turn teal and green, that we will start to have more clearance for animal use. Because as we know, most of the human dosages are actually based on animal models. And so without the ability to actually do those studies, it's not going to be an increase in the use in human subjects. So I do see that as something that will be coming in more states. And if that's something that you are interested in, it is a good point of advocacy based on what state you happen to be in regards to either advocating for or against the deregulation of marijuana for veterinary purposes. So with this article, what I really wanted you guys to focus on or to get out of this